All right, Kiss Army, welcome to the KissFAQ Podcast. Thank you for giving us your time today and letting us into your head. I hope you don't do any damage. This is a Kiss-related podcast by the board for the board. We hope that you enjoy. Welcome to episode 199 of the KissFAQ Podcast. I'm your host, Julian Gill, and today we're joined by a special guest, Roger from Adelaide in Australia. Is that correct? You are actually in Adelaide, or did I just butcher where you're from in your name?
No, that's where I'm from. You pronounced it correctly. Because of my accent, I'll try to talk a little bit slower so the folks can understand what I'm saying.
I'm sorry, that was absolutely hilarious to me. Obviously, I also have an accent, but a little bit different than most. But watching Gene on the Adelaide Q&A, trying to decipher what some of the Aussies were saying to him.
Translate and also tell Ace, because Ace is deaf almost. So it was
Ace can't hear a thing. So add into that, there were some pretty strong accents in that audience. But Gene, I thought, with him speaking Hungarian, Hebrew, German, and English, that he would have a better ear for different languages, plus the amount of time he's spent in Australia.
Yeah. He's been here enough times in the last sort of 20 years, so you think he would get the hang of it, but never mind, he got there.
Yeah, well, I don't have any problems understanding you, so I think we'll do just fine. So since you're new to this show, first of all, thank you for coming on. It's always good, and it's a goal of the KissFAQ podcast to represent the world and to represent fans wherever they are from, and it's just a very good opportunity. Even though I said I wasn't going to do any more episodes about the Vault,
We'll sneak one more in.
Yeah, I think just one more, because the Australia kind of tour and Vault experience was different than anywhere else in the world.
From what I've read, what you guys did, absolutely. It's
it had that kind of extra bonus of having Ace Frehley.
Yeah, big bonus.
So before we get started, let's find out a little bit about you with my standard Inquisition questions of what got you into Kiss. What was your first memory of Kiss that actually got you interested in the band?
Right. I have to go back 1979. You probably heard of a TV show we had here, Countdown.
Aye.
Molly Meldrum was the host. And Kiss were about to explode, or just exploding in this country. And seeing him on there, I Was Made for Loving You, and they did an interview on the World Trade Center where Ace was drunk. Look, it's rock and roll, that thing, which, I think I was about 8 at that stage, and 47 now, so 39 years of following him. But seeing that video, and they were kind of like, at that point, I think I was into, Superman and Hulk and Batman and things like that. So it was kind of like having 4 superheroes with the capes and the big, larger than life character that they all were. It was sort of hard to resist as a young kid. So,
So what was your first album then? Would it be right to assume that Dynasty?
Unmasked, as you would say. That was the first. I think I'd heard Dynasty. I think a friend of mine had it, and heard all the songs. And but I think the first album I owned was Unmasked, which to this day is probably my favorite. Between that one and Creatures, probably my 2 sort of favorite. I can't split them, but Creatures are certainly more Kiss-like, but Unmasked has got that special, it introduced me to them, in terms of the album that I played, till it wore out kind of thing. So, yeah.
Right. I think at one point, just about everyone in Australia had a copy of either Dynasty or Unmasked in their house. It was probably more like a plague in that country for what was a population of, 15 million.
Now, you see the turnout for the Vault and the concerts and that, it's still, there's still that level of, those, we're all 40, 50 now, but getting introduced to them at that young age, and it was such a massive thing. Kissteria was just, I don't know if you could compare it to what you got in the US. They had, 77, 78 sort of period. We kind of had 79, 80, into 81 a little bit, but it was just everywhere. You turn on the TV, they were there. All the newspapers, magazines, it was all Kiss, Kiss, Kiss. So, yeah.
From someone who got into the band during what is an absolutely amazing part of the history. Kissteria in Australia really is kind of the last golden high point until the reunion for the band. Yep. Did you stay a fan as a result of that Through thick and thin.
I did, yeah. And I've said it a few times, and in recent times it's been topical because meeting Gene and all that. They kind of carried me through, you go through that sort of awkward teen years and sort of the tough times that you have in life. And they were the only constant for me. Like, I always had their music and always had the latest. And it was hard to get info down here. It was really, they didn't tour for a lot of years, and there was a lot of sort of, I think, 16 magazine, maybe for a year or two after the kind of hysteria wore off. Still had some articles, but yeah, until they probably took the makeup off and did the Animalize and that kind of stuff, started to get a little bit more. But yeah, it was pretty lean for well, they didn't tour here for 15 years, so it was apart from the albums, there wasn't a lot to sort of hang on to, But
what was their sort of visibility in Australian pop culture throughout the 1980s with albums like Animalize, Asylum, or Crazy Nights? Had they really dropped off the face of the earth there after that high point of 1980?
I sort of remember a lot of times walking into record stores, and there was, obviously pre-internet and all those sort of things. You just had to find them. But I'd walk into record stores and there'd be the new Kiss album. Like, oh, wicked, and then save your money so you could buy it. But it wasn't like you knew it was coming like you do now, and the months of hype and stuff. It was just walk in and there was an album. Hey, I know those guys, and you'd grab it, or if you could. But yeah, visibility was minimal. A few magazine articles. Very rare that you'd see anything about them on TV. So yeah, you really had to. Yeah, it wasn't easy, but as I say, they kind of helped me through those tough teen years and going into adulthood, because they were the only kind of thing that was there that was dependable, I guess. You could always rely on the next Kiss album, the next batch of songs to carry you through. So
yeah, pretty much it got to the point of come September, you knew there was a Kiss album coming in the 80s. Yeah. So,
And I think even here we might have got them later than what the US did. I think it wasn't kind of the release, might have been remember a couple of years getting it for Christmas and things like that. So I feel like we might have been a little bit behind back then. I may be wrong, the release dates, but it just felt like maybe that's the only time my mum could buy them was, after had to save for a couple of months to get them, and Christmas came round. But yeah, it always felt like the album was out and then we'd get it after that. But yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of how it was. So I'm going to put you on the spot and make you choose your flavor of Kool-Aid. Who is your favorite member of the band?
I go between Gene and Paul. They've sort of been there, they've been all the way through. Paul for the longest time, but I guess lately, sort of leaning back more towards Gene, I guess. But yeah, I mean, he's splitting hairs with those two. But my favourite four would probably be the Revenge lineup. Eric Singer's my favourite drummer. Bruce, and Ace. I mean, Ace is Ace. He's amazing, and some of those amazing solos that he created. So he's right up there. But yeah, I probably, Vinny and Mark are probably the two that I don't have a lot of, care factor is minimal, but the rest of them are all sort of pretty important players, I guess. So.
Now, before we get into talking about the Vault experience, and I'm not going to turn this into an episode about the history of Kiss in Australia, because we don't have people from Perth, Melbourne, and Sydney on as well to represent those cities. But 1995, obviously you've just said that the Revenge lineup is one of your favorites. Did you see any of the shows in 1995? Because that was like probably the high point for that band, the power of and the glory of their live performances was that mini tour they did.
It was. They did the conventions either, I think, the night before or a couple of days before each proper concert. They were the official conventions. They played here. They did at the ballroom, the same place we did the Gene Vault the other day, funnily enough. And similar to what they did in the US with those official conventions, they had like the museum and they did the unplugged set and stuff like that. But yeah, I remember it being fairly well hyped because it had been so long since they'd been here. But you fast forward 2 years from that, and the reunion happens, and it's massive, compared with that. So, but yeah, that was a pretty special era for me. I think that because I play drums myself. I've been in a lot of bands, and that Revenge lineup was so musically so solid, and Eric Singer being such a showman and all that sort of thing. It was sort of came along at the right time in terms of them being like really good musos rather than just being Kiss and doing those songs. So, yeah.
Yeah, it was very bare bones, and the set was absolutely massive at that time. What they
Yeah,
reached in 1995 was really kind of a high point of the Unmasked era. So let's move into the Vault experience. Obviously, Australia was a little bit hard done by. You were on the schedule to have your Vault experience in February of this year,
yeah,
soon after the first two Vault events. Obviously, I did LA, and then I think it was Miami came next, and then Gene was going to jet off to Australia. And his
yeah,
original intention was always to combine um, live performances, concerts, with the Vault experiences. At what
yeah.
point did you purchase the Vault, and what was kind of the thing that made you make that decision? Because it's a hell of
Well,
an
I
investment.
purchased the Vault. My wife Cindy bought it for me for my birthday, which was August 3rd.
Okay.
Gene Simmons was on a TV show, Denton's, I think it's called Interview, where he did like a via satellite thing with Gene. And as I'm sitting there watching it, she could, she knew my Kiss obsession. She doesn't really get into them at all, but she was watching me, and as she's sitting on the other couch, she's literally paying for it online as I'm sitting there watching it, and didn't tell me until the day of my birthday that that's what she'd done. So needless to say, I was pretty emotional.
Well, that's
Yeah, so
that's
I
absolutely brilliant. I mean, who wouldn't
yeah,
get a massive response from their wife just doing that for them while they're sitting
yeah,
on the couch? I mean, that's an absolutely amazing present to receive from her.
absolutely, yeah, and something I'd never do myself. I mean, I just feel like as amazing as it was, it's such a lot of money, So, yeah, the fact that she did it was okay. So I'll just have to up the ante when it's her birthday next, I guess.
So, unlike most of the other Australian fans, then you hadn't had a long wait for it, or the disappointment of it being postponed,
No,
because you
I'd
had you
heard
had
about
you had
all
nothing
these
in it.
things, but yeah, I'd heard about that stuff, but to me, I was just an observer thinking, oh, that's a bit of a bummer, and all I had, because I knew the concert was happening, and I bought tickets for that. I think the end of last year when they went on sale for
Hmm.
the February shows, I just bought the concert ticket. So yeah, I thought, oh well, we'll have to wait, and we were sort of planning an overseas trip later this year, which I was thinking, I bet my luck I'll plan the overseas trip, then they'll get rescheduled, and it'll be when I'm away, sort of thing. But well, it's not till November, so yeah, it worked out okay. But yeah, so I wasn't affected by it, because yeah, I didn't know that was coming until was August 3rd, and then so it's only had to wait 3 or so weeks to do it. So bonus.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are probably growling a little bit right now that you didn't have 8 months of suffering waiting for Gene to actually get there.
Yeah.
Um,
And there was a vibe of that around, and I'm on a Facebook group that there's been a little bit of back and forth between fans saying they're not happy with this, not happy with that, and here's me pop up, all excited and not having to go through all that. So
Yeah, Johnny come lately. I was following some of the Australian Facebook groups, and I must say, on the one hand, I felt there was a lot of overthinking it rather than just
yeah,
waiting for it to happen and see what happened, because every Vault experience has been different. But that's so
yeah,
easy for someone like me to say, who's been to a couple of them already, when mine
and it's a
hasn't been
pretty one
postponed.
too.
Yeah, a bit disingenuous on my part, because it's obviously a bit more expensive for Australians to purchase the Vault, and,
Yeah,
and the weight involved. But also, there is no fixed dynamic to how the Vault takes
mm,
place, other
mm,
than Gene is going to show up and hand deliver your Vault to you at some location. That's kind of the only
yeah,
part that's
yeah,
guaranteed. Some other parts are vastly different because of timing, scheduling, and
hmm,
whatnot.
yeah.
And for Adelaide was the first Australian Vault. It was different than the other three that took place in Australia.
It was, yeah. They originally was going to all happen on the 28th, the Vault that day, and then the concert that night, as they did in all the other three states. But because of the fact that they flew in from Quebec, I think it's pronounced, in Canada, they literally landed apparently at 4:30 when they told us to arrive at the venue to pick up all the gear to do the Vault thing. So so they must have known, schedule-wise they weren't going to be there, so had a spare day the next day. So it worked out really well that we got to do the concert that night, do all that stuff, and then it was the next day. It was really relaxed. It was a full, felt like 5 or 6 hours in the room with Gene and Ace and the band guys. So yeah, it was really relaxed rather than didn't feel as rushed as what some of them have described the other ones as being, you know.
No, and there were quite a lot of vaults sold for the Adelaide event. By my reckoning, it was nearly 40. I think 39 were handed out at that.
Is that right? Yep. Yeah, I know it was 30. We counted 34 in the room, but there was a couple, I think, that had theirs already delivered and brought them with them and stuff like that. I don't know, for whatever reason, but so they must have ordered them online, got them delivered, and then brought them to the thing to get signed and meet Gene and all that stuff.
So what were the special components of the Vault experience that were provided to you, and how were all of these things communicated to you? Obviously, I should be wearing my "I'm with Keith" T-shirt because I'm a big fan of Keith Valcourt and how he's conducted himself.
Yeah, and I know, you know, as I say, people complain about some of the things, but my personal experience was he was great the whole way through. And we got an email maybe the week before saying arrive at this time and this is what will happen, and you're going to get the sound check. That was our kind of one of our bonus things, was to see the sound check. There was no Q&A or the acoustic, although there was a Q&A, which we found out later was just a bit of a bonus. But they said they're not going to do the acoustic performance that they have been doing. What else was there? It's a bit of a blur now, but
yeah, I think the songs and story, the acoustic thing that Gene has done. He's done that from January. He did it with Ace for me, and it was a bit of a cluster. It was almost pointless because he strummed the guitar, play a couple of chords, maybe a little bit more, and he and Ace couldn't remember anything. Basically, you know,
and it was you're right. It was a bit messy. It was just kind of more. It was good to see the camaraderie and having
the camaraderie and comedic value for me is what was kind of the only thing to come out of the songs and stories. It wasn't a proper like Storytellers MTV broadcast where Gene plays a song with a band and then talks about it. So I don't think missing out on that was actually missing out on anything from my perspective. Obviously, when you bought the Vault and you're sitting there, do you feel that you missed it with everything else that they did, the sound check and whatnot?
And I feel like the fact that on the day of the Vault, they had that little half an hour Q&A, which I'm sure you watched the footage of. That was wasn't announced. It wasn't. They just walked out and sat down on the vaults and started, answering questions. Another part of it was we got, on the night before at the concert, the Vault buyers got to go on stage for one song. Which they had the girls went up for Do You Love Me and the guys went up for I Love It Loud, and then you could all come up at the end, which I seen the one in Brisbane, I think, and there was like 100 people on stage, which was pretty crowded. But
yeah, it becomes a bit of a madhouse. So let's start with the concert. You get there at 4:30 for sound check, and we know that the backing band, Phil Schaus, Jeremy Asbrock. My lights just went off in the background. So, Christopher Williamson, except who's the drummer, and who am I forgetting? Phil, Ryan, Jeremy. Yeah. So they had basically just met Ace for the first time at that sound check. When you went into the sound check, was it already in progress, or were Ace and the band yet to come out? And how did the sound check kind of get conducted?
So the band guys were already on stage, plugging in, tuning up. There was half a dozen roadies walking around, sticking wires down and doing all those things that they do. And they started running through a song or two, and then I think Ace came out, and they were really, you could see they were tight. They were a really good band, and I'd seen plenty of footage of the other shows they'd done. And then once Ace came up, it all kind of went, and literally he was meeting him, that day. So, and he had issues with the guitar that he had, and it almost felt awkward. It felt because he was just basically standing there, just strumming the guitar for felt like 10 minutes, and everyone was sort of started to mumble like, "Is that it?" And one of the guys up front got angry. He's like, "This is Ace Frehley, show some respect," because we were all kind of, murmuring amongst ourselves that, what's this guy's lost it, there was kind of this awkward thing. And then they started running through a few songs. He sort of messed up a little bit, and, he's Ace, he does that. But yeah, it was cool to see the whole setup. And they were kind of joking around. Gene didn't come out, which was a bit of a downer. Gene was I don't even promise. They never really promised anything. They said that I'll do sound check. You can watch the band, and so I think Jeremy or Phil played bass. I think maybe Phil played bass for the Ace band, and then there was the extra guitarist when Gene was out there. But during sound check, we didn't see Gene. Ace was up there for most of it. And when Ace finished the sound check, I thought, geez, this is going to be really disappointing, because Ace was sloppy, but he stepped up when the actual concert proper happened. He was a lot more solid.
I think he probably had a little bit more time with the guitar. From what I saw of it, it was basically his first time touching that guitar, and it may not have been set up to his kind of feel.
Yeah,
and as we know from other ones.
I know guitarist guys that I've been in bands with, they talk about the action and, you play guitar, but so they talk about things like that. And he said that the next day in the Q&A that he had, didn't like the guitar he got given and all those sorts of things. So, hats off. Once the proper show was on, he stepped up and he delivered. So, yeah.
Well, let me ask you, you've probably watched some of the songs and stories on YouTube because most of them have been filmed. Do you feel it was a good substitute, that it made the event different for you? And do you take a positive out of that part of the experience over the songs and stories?
I think so. I mean, it would have been good to have the songs and stories thing if it was, if it was there instead. I wouldn't have, complained. But having seen him, you get to see everything these days because you can watch that stuff on YouTube, and then, it's not quite the same as being there. But then to do this was kind of our special twist on it. We got to see the sound check, and apparently Brisbane, Gene was up there as well doing sound check, and so as a whole, we got something pretty unique that there wasn't anywhere else, I guess. So there's that. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the kind of organizational challenges are, but I do know that there were mixing boards at the locations for the ones in the US in order to have a proper sound system to do a songs and stories. So that just may have been a technical hurdle that they did not want to deal with, especially when they've got shows going on concurrently. So, I think as a Kiss fan, if you ask, what would you rather have, the songs and stories or sound check access? Most Kiss fans are going to say, I want both. So
yeah, we're never happy. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But I think it's kind of cool that we got our own little special thing that wasn't anywhere else, and you guys had your special thing by having the songs and stories. So it might have got boring by now, like you said. It sort of run its course a little bit. You can only tell it goes so many times, and so
they all did become very the same and very middling in my opinion. How long between the sound check roughly did it take for the show to start? And of course Ace was opening up.
Yep, I think it was 40 minutes. I think he started right on 7:40, and he had an extra song to play in his proper set, and he came out and he said, I got one, I can only do one, should I play this or should I play that? I can't remember which the two were, but the crowd kind of cheered for whichever one, and he played that. I think he played Cold Gin last, so he cut. It's all a bit of a blur, but so Gene and Co must have said, you've got exactly an hour, and he'd sort of about to go over the hour, so they cut him short a little bit, but.
Yeah, it was Detroit Rock City was on the set.
That's right, it was too, yeah.
Yeah, and he finished up with Cold Gin. What did you think of the set? I mean, just quickly for anyone who hasn't been online in the last month, he did Parasite, Hard Times, 2000 Man, Rock Soldiers, Rip It Out, Love Gun with Phil on vocals, Rocket Ride, Strange Ways with Chris on vocals, Talk to Me, New York Groove, and Shock Me, and finishing up with Cold Gin. And of course, Adelaide was the only city in which he did Talk to Me.
Oh, is that right? I didn't know that. Okay.
I believe. From what I've seen of the other sets, that was dropped the following night and never returned. But Detroit Rock City, I think.
The sound check, I remember it being pretty horrible. And hadn't played it for a while with his band. Something wasn't quite right with it. So maybe that's why. I can't remember it in the proper set, but it was a bit shaky in the sound check. So maybe just decided it was better to stick to stuff he was solid in playing. So, I think the set was good. It was probably fairly predictable. Some people say he should have played one of the new ones that he's released. But, you know, we've all heard them online, all sort of done that. So the only thing I have, and it's the same when Kiss play Shock Me and those things, I'd rather stick to the songs that are theirs. Like Detroit and Love Gun don't have any place in an Ace set, I don't think. I mean, they're iconic for their solos, but it's sort of like either all do them or no one does them, I guess. It's sort of one of those, you know. I'd rather see Ace play, I mean, something like Love Me Right or something would be cool, or, you know, We Got Your Rock, or, I mean, you're probably dreaming a little bit to ask for those, but some of those...
Those are two very good selections, by the way. In all of my other shows where we've talked about the Ace songs that we like to be in there, no one's ever mentioned Love Me Right, and that used to be done in 87, and that was always goes across really well. I think, you know, Love Gun and Detroit Rock City, I'm not a big fan of those songs being in the set either, but I do see that he needs a bit of help with the vocal load. So...
Yeah, that's probably a fair point, and the other guys can fill in the spots there. And even when he does Love Gun, his drummer plays, the normal drummer he has with the other band plays, does the singing on that one, doesn't he?
Yes, and Chris did on this tour. So, and, you know, Ace's greatest hits, you know, I don't think we're ever going to get them to kind of figure out that it is really only diehards who are attending these shows now, and that they could...
these little theatre ones. It's not like they're in the arena with, you know, the big, you know, 50% of them being casuals that just want to see the big show. Where actually, when you're in a theatre like that, and I think Gene did a bit better in that. He kind of played a few more fan favourites, you know, than just playing the... I mean, he still did a few that were, you know, I Love It Loud, I Was Made for Loving You, no, you know, and had a girl sing it at every show, I think. So, yeah.
So they brought up the Vault purchasers were like given hints about when to show up near the stage in order for... I'm going to do it. I'm going to just do it, one of those horrible Aussie thing, for the Sheilas to go up for Do You Love Me, and the Blokes to go up for what, I Love It Loud on Gene's. And I've just jumped ahead as well, so I want to just rewind briefly to the Ace show. Attendance-wise, what was the venue like in terms? I think it was the Entertainment Center Theatre. Was it full, or how was it set up?
It was kind of normal. The stage at one end and the floor area, which I've been to other events and they've had seating, but more for a concert, it's just standing area. And then there's like a raised grandstand, if you like, at the back. And I've read on their website that it holds 1,600, and maybe there was 1,400 there or something. So, but that, you know, somebody wrote that on Facebook, so it could be fact, it could be sort of fiction. But yeah, it was a pretty good crowd in there. So it felt like a good, you know, semi-full sort of thing. So, and they sold a lot of cheap ones. $50 each instead of 140 something that we paid way back in February. So,
ouch.
You know,
that's kind of the way that goes.
Got given with the Vault, you get 2 tickets to the show as well. So we had 4 and only needed 2. So, and yet, of course, because they were cheap, no one was going to buy them off you for any sort of money. So,
no.
But the good thing was I got to kind of go down the front, do the sound check and do all that, and then go up to the seats and have a view. So I kind of went between the 2 spots the whole night, sort of thing. So
let me ask you about one last question on Ace's set. Was there a high point and a low point for you personally during his proper performance?
Actually, I think Cold Gin. I think it's the way they played it, and by then they really hit their straps, and they were because I think, you know, coming together with him being the way he is and the band only meeting him that day took him a little bit to gel. But I think as the set went on. And Cold Gin, just had that energy to it, and it's always a good song anyway. I think it's one of those crowd pleasers. But yeah, I think that one. Maybe Rock Soldiers. I've never seen that live. It's one of those ones that you know, it's a somewhat of an 80s. Well, it is an 80s one. It comes from that era, so it's always good when he pulls out those. And there was nothing from the 2 recent albums either, was there? Anomaly and no. It's interesting, but yeah.
That's the only disappointment. And it was the same for the two shows that I saw earlier in the month. That it was much more of a greatest hits kind of thing.
Yeah.
And classic stuff. I love Cold Gin when Ace does it. That's just one of those songs, obviously, that he didn't do with the band back in the day. It's always a high point for me personally too.
Yeah.
What about low point? Was there anything that you really felt didn't quite work for him that night? Taking into account the challenges.
To me, I think. But again, I don't really remember it in the proper set, just the sound check. But I think just his general looseness. And I know, he's sort of famous for that, but he just, I feel like he just had an off night. And a mate of mine, John, who was there, he was down the front, and he said he's seen him the last couple of tours with Alice Cooper. He came here maybe last year, or said he was a lot better that time than this show. But he himself may have just landed that day and, had a bit of jet lag going on and things like that. So, but yeah, I mean, he wasn't horrible, but he was loose, and he was like the worst musician on the stage, if that makes sense. He was like which really you sort of think Ace really should be up here, and they should be, but it was sort of like they were carrying him a little bit, the other guys in the band. But yeah, it was still
He is Ace Frehley, and he is the one who inspired, I think, all of the guitarists on that stage to pick up the instrument. And
as he likes.
and just to be devil's advocate somewhat, I don't know when Ace flew in. I think he had a couple of extra days beforehand because he knew he needed more time to get over jet lag. But only meeting your band roughly 40 minutes before hitting the stage, no matter how good that band is and can play all the material, Ace is still not in sync with them. And maybe he misses Richie.
It's the same thing. You much as you might know the material and they know it, it's still gelling together is the hard thing. So definitely cutting some slack in that area. Yeah.
All right, well, let's move on to Gene's set. Intermission. How long did it take between Ace's set finishing and Gene being ready?
So I read it was half an hour. Ace finished about 8:40, and we thought, okay, half an hour from then is obviously 9:10. We went out to get some food and stuff like that, and then started hearing Deuce being played. So sort of did the big rush back in. So we missed the intro of Gene. And he did the radioactive intro part, I believe.
Yep.
So we sort of heard that, and I thought that's live, and we, oh damn. So I might have missed a couple of minutes of the first bit, but it was sort of like it felt. The impact of it was, walking into there and he was already into it. It was like, holy shit, that's Gene Simmons, he's quite a presence, So yeah. Really cool.
Now, he'd just gotten off a plane shortly before the show. How did he seem physically? From what I think I read online, that he made too many Crocodile Dundee jokes throughout the night, which just to me speaks of jet lag and just being tired and not really knowing how he wants to talk to you.
All the way through, I'm not tired and we're not tired. And, he mentioned a few times they'd flown 22 hours non-stop, different flights and different airports and things to get there that afternoon, but it's like he was saying, I'm not tired, to try and convince himself of that. But he was really odd. He was in a weird sense, he had a weird sense of humor, and that he made that that joke about Paul voice and stuff like that, so which has kind of gone viral. But yeah, he was in a funny mood, and 3 or 4 songs in, they started jamming on things really loosely, like they played half of a song or the intro, and then they'd move on, which is sort of, I know they're always loose, but that was really, it was cool to see. I think Almost Human, Sweet Pain, 2 or 3 that they kind of got a little bit into it, and he just did the, cut, I don't know it, and then they moved on, but.
Yeah, so what's your impression of the Gene Simmons band? Obviously, they are very tight. Gene's worked with most of those guys now for nearly a couple of years. They've got a lot of shows under their belt, but here's a very unusual part of history, seeing Gene Simmons perform solo. How do you evaluate him as a solo performer compared to maybe Paul Stanley?
I think he's come a long way. I saw the first few solo shows that he did, which going back, I don't know how long ago now, a couple of years, whatever. And he played fine and the band was good, but his in between song stuff was really, he didn't really know, he'd never done that. So, but now he's kind of got that. He's got the command of the stage and all those sorts of things when it comes to conducting the audience and knowing what to say and all this sort of thing. So he's come a long way in that area. But the band is super tight, super good band. Met them all the day after, which we'll get to later. But really, they're almost like fans that got to, the backstory. They got to kind of go on stage with one of their heroes. So it's a pretty cool story, I think. But yeah, they seem to be. Even Gene himself seems to enjoy that more than he does Kiss now. I think it's a bit of a pressure release, a bit of fun rather than having to be carrying all the gear and doing the act and all that sort of thing. He can just be himself a bit more. So
he can go out and play any song in the catalog with those guys.
Yeah.
I know that Kiss has said they can play anything with Tommy and Eric, but they don't. And they won't.
It doesn't mean they do.
And they can't, in essence, at most shows. So because you do have so many casual fans who are going, so they can't play songs to please 5 people in the audience, and that makes sense. Do you think Gene's having fun? Did he seem to be enjoying himself? But
Absolutely.
before we kind of go into some of the songs in the set and things that aren't there, what was kind of the immediate response to the comments about Paul? When I saw the clip come up, and my immediate impression was, oh my God, he went there.
Yeah, that was it. It was a collective, whoa, did he really say that? It was like this, it sort of swept around the arena as it was said. It was kind of, wow, awkward, and everyone sort of looked at each other and, it was kind of a, I guess if he had his time over, he wouldn't have went there, but
well, he did it again a couple of nights later, so apparently not.
But did he do that, or was it did he say bullshit or something? But he might have been referring to, I've seen the clip somewhere. It was,
he kind of masked it. You could take it either way. It's just
but
one of those things.
He does have a, he was definitely having a dig there, but I guess it just seems like he's more, just enjoying it more and just being off the leash a little bit, just playing the songs, having some fun. The band guys are great. There's no pressure on him to play the demon thing, which, he's done for all these years. So,
What did you think of the set? Because he did do a lot of the deep cuts. He had kind of the greatest Gene hits, as well as stuff like Radioactive, Charisma, Plaster Caster, She's So Australian.
She's So Australian, yeah.
Doesn't work. What did you think of it overall?
Overall, good. Again, you could ask for a couple more rather than I Love It Loud, and although that was a song that the blokes got up on stage, so that was cool. But there's always going to be those must-do songs like Deuce. I mean, it's always an iconic sort of thing. But overall, I think he didn't play Are You Ready, which would have been cool, because that's, for me, that's the best song on the Vault. I think that's. But that would have been good to hear that live, and he did it at the other shows, I believe. But again, no complaints. It was I think when you're in the moment and you're up there, they could play, The Elder, The Elder would be pretty amazing, but they could play whatever and it'd be cool because you're seeing them live. So it's never any big deal. I mean, I've seen Kiss a few times in recent years. I've done the same set list exactly, and it's still, when you're in the moment, it's great.
It's still the show. Yeah.
The other time, so.
Yeah, I mean, I went to Edmonton to see the Gene Simmons band, and he didn't do some of the songs that I had hoped, but still, the ones that he did do were very enjoyable, and just watching the band and Gene's interaction, or fumbling somewhat as a front man, was very entertaining. Yeah. So for me, it was entertaining. For these Australian sets, I mean, I was looking at the Quebec show set, and, they had done, Are You Ready? But that's really the only big one that wasn't there. I was a little bit disappointed to not see that, or It's My Life, or I in the set list. But what he did give you was still very good. Anyway,
I think he did I. Maybe did he do I in Melbourne or Sydney? One of them.
Yes, he did in Melbourne. Yeah. Melbourne had a much longer set because it had and I've just seen an error in my set list here. He did Almost Human as well, so just a little bit more, but understanding jet lag. It is what it is. You never know what you're going to get in a set, whether it's Kiss, whether it's Gene, whether it's Ace, because even, like was the case with Ace, Detroit Rock City was on the set list and didn't get performed. So
that's right. Yeah.
Ultimately, it doesn't matter. So the show ends.
Prior to that, just quickly, this was the when the guys got to go up for I Love It Loud. And they said when War Machine starts, go to the side of the stage, and if you got your wristband on, you get to go up. And so ducked around the back, and we went up there and walking on stage, and it's the weirdest feeling to be Gene Simmons in front of you, bass around his neck, 7 foot tall, even without the big boots on. He's a tall man, and there's couple of thousand people in front of you. It's pretty surreal, and there's the lights, and there's the rest of the band are there, and they're all sweaty, and it's kind of like, being a musician myself that plays in little pubs and clubs and things, it's to be on a somewhat of a big stage and to feel that that power, and looking across and Gene Simmons is plucking away on the bass. It's pretty surreal, so that was part of the Vault package as well, that all those guys got to do, which was that was really special. So once in a lifetime to be on stage with Gene Simmons, So,
he's a big fella who's a powerful
and attractive man.
Well, I was going to say, I wasn't going to say attractive. I was going to say intimidating. He has a certain amount of menace to him, just with how he does kind of his body language and his composure.
Yeah.
So he can be very intimidating. So I'm not and I've said it before on shows, I am not a big fan of letting people on stage. It's just one of those things in the post Dimebag world that I've really been uncomfortable with, especially with how some people have behaved on stage at these Gene events, getting in his way, not getting off the stage, bumping him, being more interested in doing selfies. But you know what? It's his stage. If he wants to share
actually, Chris warned us earlier. He said, don't be hanging out with your phones and trying to get photos, because he won't like it. Once it's time to go, I'll be up there walking everybody off. And there was a few that straggled around a little bit, and he was, almost grabbing them by the shirt and dragging them off the stage. But that happened in all 4 shows, I believe, from the footage I've seen. But for the most part, I think, people are on and off. But as a person in the audience watching it, it is a bit, hurry up and get to the next song. But when you're up there, it's, you're seeing it from that side. It's pretty cool. So, it was just an awesome little bonus as part of the whole package. So.
And of course, he had "I Was Made for Loving You" in the set, and he had an audience member or some random female.
No, I think that lady
her name was Rose.
Yeah, local singer, and I think he got somebody at all 4 shows to do that song, and he picked a girl, local sort of artist, up and coming artist, to do that song. So I feel like they're obligated to play that song because they're in Australia, but we don't really care if we don't hear it.
You would rather have had Shandy, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's a bit of a myth, the Shandy thing down here. It's not anywhere near as at the time it was, but it's. These days, I Was Made for Loving You, Rock and Roll All Night, Shout It Out Loud, Sure Know Something. That's probably the only 4 that you hear. Shandy's forgotten. It's funny, but it seems to be attached to us forever. But it's not quite as it didn't have lasting power like some of the other Kiss songs did, But
you've got something to look forward in 2019 when the band returns down under. Yeah. You're sure to get Paul saying you're going to get Shandy and you're going to like it. So
true.
The show wraps up, and day 2. What time did all of the events for the actual experience start?
Okay, so that was at the Hilton Ballroom at 12:30, I believe. They said get there about 12:30, and we arrived right on time. And as luck would have it, wife and I stood, we didn't know we were standing in the right spot. We were closest to the stairs that went up to the top. We had no idea where we were supposed to go. And Keith comes sort of halfway down the stairs and gives everybody a wave and signals us to come up the stairs. So when we get to the top, we were first. So he says, come on then, sort of gestured us over and put the wristbands on, and I had number 1 on me, which meant I was number 1. So first up. So I always hang my hat on the fact that I was the very first person in this country to get a Vault. So I'm kind of happy with that, but or to get delivered one, hand delivered. So probably half an hour between getting there, getting upstairs, everyone get the wristbands, sort of standing around at the front, and then they opened the doors and we went into the main room where the meet and greet part was going to take place. And then, can't remember the timeline, it wasn't long, and Keith came out and said that Gene and Ace were going to come and do a Q&A, which wasn't part of anything. They just had half an hour to spare, so gave us something extra for our time, which was good. And I'm sure you've seen that footage.
Now, the Q&A was a good 30 minutes, or close to 30 minutes, and it was full of, well, Ace was obviously in very good form when he could hear the questions.
Yeah.
That was, and he made some comments about Vinnie Vincent. But it seemed very relaxed. So, just give us the 20,000 foot view of the Q&A and what you recall. What were the high points that you can immediately recall?
Well, very early on, Gene's talking. He's telling some story about how he was going to call it the Monster box set, and then Paul decided that he wanted that name for the album. And then he sort of went through another name. I can't think what he said now, but arrived on the Vault. And as he's telling the story, he turns around and my wife and I were standing off to his left. And he says, "Oh, there's a pretty girl." And he points to her and she's like all embarrassed. And he kind of did this little flirtatious thing, said, I can't remember what he said, but so she's bright red and everyone sort of had a bit of, and Ace is kind of like, here he goes, typical Gene. He's doing the flirty thing that he does. And so, yeah, they're both, laughing, joking, lots of really good interaction, pats on the back, pats on the leg. It was like, best mates. It was really, really good to see. So, yeah.
Did he say anything during the Q&A that kind of shocked you that you hadn't heard online or whatnot to that point?
Nothing earth-shattering. Just rumours, the 3-year tour and that sort of stuff, and which we've kind of heard a little bit about. And but I'm surprised, and I could have said it myself, I guess, but it was one of those things where a few people were firing questions. It was a bit hard to hear. You can hear at the start of it, there's a siren. And I was over to the side where the open door, where the siren, so half of it we couldn't hear. So I'm glad someone filmed it so we could watch it later. But I thought someone might have fired a question at him like, what's Ace's involvement going to be, in this 3-year tour? Is there any Ace involvement? Or not that he probably would have, gave us the scoop, but, you could have seen by his reaction if he vetoed it or if he just like, yeah, next question, he's sort of smoothed it over, whether it was, we could get something from that. But, they're not going to give anything away until the time dried.
He was jet lagged. It was your opportunity, Australia.
True.
Adelaide, you could have possibly gotten some information. No, he seemed to have, I mentioned it earlier, he seemed to have quite a bit of difficulty with the accents. And, at that point, I'm just giggling stupidly because there was a very early version of the video up on Facebook from Vincent, I think his name, or Vinny. And I was watching that, and you had the siren, you had the wind. Yeah. It was like the windows were open, or what? I'm not sure. It's winter time.
Yeah, big glass doors, and it was because it's a really balmy day. It was unusual for this time of year. It was quite warm, and but the downside was when they were talking. So, I mean, Ace wasn't the only one that couldn't hear. It was really hard to, and we were just silent because we were all sort of edging closer, trying to get in so we could hear. And they weren't exactly talking soft, but it was just a lot of background noise going on outside. So, but yeah, it was just the interaction between them was very natural. It wasn't kind of forced, or you got to see, here's two guys that have been through it all. Despite the differences and despite the drama and all those sorts of things, they're still like brothers. It was evident the whole day. They back and forth because Ace was in the room the whole day, like Gene was. So. Every now and then they'd cross paths, and Ace walked up behind Gene and grabbed him on the ass and gave him a little squeeze, and on the ass, I should say.
You can speak properly just for me. We don't need to translate it.
Yeah.
So obviously it was a bonus, and I think the other three Vault experiences did not get a Q&A like that because you guys were just shouting out questions, the ones that they heard, they kind of just answered. What I was impressed by is that it wasn't like a press gaggle. Everyone, one person at a time spoke. There wasn't a lot of over talking from the crowd. You guys seem to be very respectful of each other and of Gene and Ace. When you get into this, what was it, a ballroom or a function room of some description?
I guess a function room's a good way to say it. There was an upstairs, there was a balcony, really nice room. There was no food. There was like lemonade and coffee and tea, but there was no food and stuff, which, again, they didn't promise that, but we'd heard about it at other ones, and a few people walking around, where's the food? When's the food coming out? but there wasn't any. But, it's one of those little things. If it's there, great. If it's not, you're not going to, email Keith a week later and where's my donuts,
No, not everyone's going to get the Capitol Studios open bar and silver service waiters with silver trays walking around with hors d'oeuvres that everyone scarfed pretty quickly. Were they playing the Vault in the background? Did they have any music going on?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. They, from the moment we got in, I think pretty much the whole day, although I feel like they only had 2 discs, sort of like we heard the same, and I know there's a couple of double ups, different versions of. But I felt like we went through Are You Ready? And because those are the ones that grabbed me instantly.
Yeah.
There was that one. There was Carnival of Souls, the alternate version of that with the little breakdown in the middle, which I really like. And Are You a Boy? Are You a Girl? So I kept hearing those same songs, and I'm thinking, I can't wait to get this thing home because the songs that are sticking out already, really kind of grabbed me. So, and I kept hearing them. So it wasn't, obviously we weren't playing the whole thing start to finish because it would have taken 24 hours or whatever,
So you were the first Vault. After they wrapped up the Q&A, I think Gene says, let's present some vaults or something to that effect. Keith, did Keith shout your name? Oi, you, number one?
They said, who's number one? And I went, showed my wristband, and up we went. And it all really happened so quickly that, and again, he was just doing the flirty thing with Cindy before that. As soon as we went up, he kind of remembered her from that, and he grabbed her and he did the twirl where he starts dancing with her and playing. She had no idea. She doesn't really know much about them. Didn't know which makeup he wore, that kind of thing. So had to educate her in the days in the lead up. But he was kind of, when I was talking to him, and all I basically said was how long I'd been a fan, and what I was saying to you earlier, how got me through those awkward years and those sorts of things. And then he said something, and I said, I've liked Kiss for 39 years, and he said, what did you like before that? And I said, nothing. Music wasn't a thing until Kiss came along. And he goes, I was actually talking to her. And he kind of did this whole thing where I don't care what you want, I'm talking to your lady, So he kind of kept that going. But in the rush, we had a few minutes with him. It was like we forgot to get our own cameras out, our own phone out, and take personal photos. So the professional guy was there. He took plenty of shots, but we just didn't do our own. So later on, I remember Keith said to me, or said to all of us, if you've got a complaint, bring it up on the day. Don't email me a week later and bitch about whatever, because nothing I can do about it. So I went up to him and I said, this is maybe an hour later. I said, I reminded him of that, and he goes, what's wrong? He was really concerned that we weren't happy. And I said, it's all good. I said, because we were first, we went through rather quickly, and in all the rush, and because, we didn't see anyone else doing it, we just didn't think of getting our own personal phones out. So he said, I can fix that. He walked me over to the queue, stopped the queue, and put us in front of, which kind of felt awkward for the people who were next. But so we kind of got to do 2 meet and greets. And then when we got to the front, Gene said, he looked at us again, and we're like, and Keith says, all right, they missed out, and blah, blah. So we did the whole second one. So we kind of got a little bit spoiled in that regard. We got 2, few minute sessions with him. So that was good. And we managed to take a lot of photos on our own phone, and the professional guy took more shots. So we got double up. So, yeah.
Brilliant. Did you think about what you wanted Gene to write on your vault in advance, or did that all kind of happen right then and there? And what did he write on your vault, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, not at all. I did think about it, but as I was sitting there, they had like sort of couches outside in the balcony part, and I'm sitting there with Cindy and a guy that we'd met who come from Perth to do the vault. His name was Sam. Just met him the day before, type of thing, and I was going back and forth between what I did get written and Never Stop Rockin', because I thought that was a good, comes from Alive 3. You know, Paul says it. I know it's Paul, not Gene, but it's a good mantra, you know. And I think, you know, myself playing music, it's kind of like one of those things where you think, if I can be doing it as long as they have, you know, obviously not at that level, but just to be able to, doesn't matter how old you are, doesn't matter what level you are, just never stop doing what you enjoy. So, but in the end, because I said to Gene that basically all the way through since a kid till now, that's been like the soundtrack to my life. Like there's the latest album, and, you know, I can listen to Asylum and it reminds me of, you know, being 15. I can listen to Revenge and I'm 20 something, you know, that sort of thing. So what he put was proud to be the soundtrack to your life, he put on there. So yeah, it just kind of suited my my history, if you like. So
no, that's perfect. I mean, what better thing to have Gene write other than maybe I took your wallet?
Yeah, or blow me like you got on Eric Singers. Yeah, classic.
So you finished. How long did you kind of hang out for a bit afterwards? And
we took our vault, quite heavy, as you know. Carried it for a couple of blocks to where we'd parked. Put it in the car, and at that point I was just, you know, you got that kind of shaky thing still happening because you just met someone who's been your idol since you were a kid.
Yeah.
So I took 5 minutes to just get my composure, open the little secret compartment, and there was nothing of note. A couple of little, it was like a Santa hat that was Rock and Brews, and a laminate that seemed like everybody got this 2010 Sonic Boom era sort of backstage pass.
Yeah, I think they had a few leftovers of that, you know.
Yeah.
And have you had your hand up the backside of the vault to see if anything's fallen down?
Because as soon as I got at home, I had a proper look, and I got my arm wedged in there trying to, and I thought, nah, there's nothing. I felt around, and then somebody on the Gene Simmons Vault Facebook group said that they put their camera up there and took photos with the flash on, and they saw, I don't know, a couple of people found everything. So I did that, and I found a copy of it was 2004 Speaking in Tongues DVD. It's a red, yeah, and I already had it. I think I've got it somewhere, but it was, you know, it's a bonus. I didn't kind of, you know, but it was funny. It was wedged up there. It's almost like they put it there on purpose to, you know. I think there must be a lot of people out there with vaults that have something stuck there and not even know that it's there.
It's absolutely the case because, you know, obviously I was number 2 vault, and mine was empty because everything had gotten jammed up the back. And,
I see.
And I hadn't opened mine in front of Gene, thank goodness, because he wanted to at that point. That was still part of the kind of the shtick of let's open your secret compartment together. And I'm just relieved that we didn't do that because, again, I was filming it. And it was empty. It was only after I got it home that stuff came loose. And, you know, Keith had sorted me out immediately. He, you know, was very, very efficient and said, you know, was, you know, upset about that and wanted to check other vaults to make sure it didn't happen to other people. But the stuff was in there. And it had just gotten up the back. And there was like a tour pass from the Freedom to Rock tour and an invitation for a Grammy that had just been wedged. And, you know, it's it does happen, and I do tell everyone I still mean to put my vault upside down, just to give it a little bit of a shake.
Well,
just
put the camera with the reverse which way it takes the photo, lay it flat, and have the flash on, and take a couple of shots because that's how I saw that. I'm like, there's something red up there, because I thought it was just when I'm feeling with my hand, it just felt like the inside of the, you know, because the plastic DVD cover feels almost the same as what it does if you.
Yeah, you know what? Here's the fun part of that, as you now know firsthand, is that it is the gift that keeps on giving. because these little surprises that fall out, initially you may be disappointed, but again, the vault gifts are what they are. There's always going to be a broad spectrum of them. Not everyone's going to get a Rolex or a beach towel.
Yeah, I think somebody got the shell of one of his dragon boots. Or something.
They were handing those out, and those have been there's been a good mix of stuff. But like anything, even though my stuff is kind of uninteresting to me, it's still going to stay in the vault and be a part of that, because again, it's from Gene's collection to me means more. That puts more value on it to me personally than its commercial value, which is to me what the vault's supposed to be about. Exactly.
Yeah, definitely.
So vault experience is over. Let's talk briefly about the music before I let you go. What are how much of the vault have you listened to so far, and what are your impressions, your initial impressions of the material, the quality, and the diversity?
Well, there's definitely, and I've heard you guys on your show talk a couple of times about the novelty factor. There's a few songs that you hear once to go, okay, that turned into Calling Dr. Love or Got Love for Sale, or you could hear the lyrics, or Love 'Em and Leave 'Em, I think is another one that's sort of half of two different songs. I can't remember which ones, but there's a little bit of that, and the quality's not there. But I feel like half of it is hidden gems, like and as I say, Are You Ready and Are You a Boy, Are You a Girl? Those sort of songs should have been on Kiss albums. I think they're better than, certainly you think of the era that some of those songs came out, that they were better than what he was actually putting out, some of them. So it's so there's it's a mix. Probably there's a few absolute throwaways and there's a few keepers and a lot in the middle. So but I haven't got it takes a long time, as you know, to grow on you. I'm a week in, and it took me a couple of days to find the time. I wanted to sit down and not have any distraction and put on disc one, song one, and just go for it. So
yeah, it's a hell of a lot of material just to try and digest. I almost feel that even 9 months on, I'm still digesting the material on the vault, just because we've had a lifetime to become familiar with the Kiss catalog, and here's 166 or however many songs it is being dumped on you in one lot, with quite a bit of repetition. There's only one track for me on there that I've already deleted from my playlist, and that is the 15-minute Bob Dylan track. That's just not something.
I haven't got to that one yet. Is that actually a song, or it's them sitting together and talking?
It's them working ideas, talking, and then there are separate tracks on there of the songs they actually worked on together. So those ones stay because they're completely valid. But a work tape sort of thing, we've had bootlegs of that sort of thing out for years, and you don't get into your car and say, I really want to listen to Gene talking to Bob Dylan today on my drive. No, usually it's gonna
like the Paul Stanley Love Gun teaching thing that he did on the Love Gun special edition, the teaching demo, and it's like it sounded like his voice was slowed down or something. It's this really weird effect on his voice, but it's like hear it once, it's cool for the novelty factor, but and that's like a lot of it. I don't suppose it's supposed to be, like you said, pop it in the car and cruise down the highway, listen to the disc 4 or whatever. It's more just the collection of songs, and it's really cool to hear the embryos, if you like, of where those songs started to what they turned out to be, those classic Kiss songs on the early albums and that, Really
exactly.
Cool.
All right, so anything that you want to add about this whole experience that I haven't asked you? Anything you want to mention before we wrap up?
I think we covered most of it, but just the fact that, and I know other people have said this, but if anyone's on the fence and they, if there's going to be Vault things moving later in the year, next year, and that sort of stuff, then get on board, because it's, not only do you get 160 odd songs and a really cool collectible item, you're getting to meet the man and you're getting to experience that whole thing. So it's a ridiculous amount of money, but in some weird way it's worth it, because it's because you can do the cruise, you can do whatever, meet and greets, everything's expensive to get that up close and personal with the guys in Kiss. So once in a lifetime type thing. So
yeah, hopefully once in a lifetime, because I really don't want to have to put another Vault 2 on the credit card after.
I can't imagine what would be on it. Like if he's got another 160 odd songs laying around, but I Who knows?
Maybe a Kiss Vault. I mean, there's got to be an awful lot left to be kind of put out there from that band if they're able to work out a deal that works for them.
I want a version of Deadly Weapons, like the best one, the one that ended up being on Asylum, Loves a Deadly Weapon. The first version of that, which Paul's singing on.
Yep.
It's like one of the best demos, but it's not a great quality. Kind of got that little bit of a muffled effect to it.
Yeah.
Great version of that, like a really sharp one would be.
I would like that whole tape because they did 4 songs. They did Deadly Weapons, Nowhere to Run, Feel Like Heaven, and I can't remember the 4th one off the top of my head. But they did those all before The Elder became The Elder. So
that's right.
Those were all mixed. I think they didn't get a lead guitar on a couple of them, but so they will have multi-tracks of those, or someone has multi-tracks. Those would be the ones. I would love to hear that. I would love to hear. It's My Life was disappointing for me on the Vault. It wasn't quite as crystal clear as I was hoping for.
Yeah, I agree. That was one that had been talked about a little bit, and the fact that the box set one came out really well. But I think there's 2 It's My Life, is there?
Yeah, the one on the box was the one they re-recorded in 1998 with Tommy.
I'm thinking of In Your Face. There's 2 In Your Face.
There's quite a few In Your Faces. So, there's still a lot of material, especially for Kiss, but, particularly from the 1980s, when you start thinking about Paul Stanley's version of Back on the Streets, if it exists, or, stuff like that. There's a lot from the 70s. And some of the stuff that Gene kind of put on his vault, Mad Dog, and some of the other stuff from the 1975 Destroyer sessions just makes it clear how good the quality is for for all of the other stuff that wasn't released. So maybe one day. I mean, these guys aren't going to let it all go out in one shot. They want revenue streams.
I think though, if a Gene Simmons one on his own is 2,000, then what's a full Kiss thing going to be with
My hope is that it's more affordable, that they can have some of it up on iTunes, that they can have some of it exclusive, that they can balance including people and excluding people economically, because it's a very tough thing to be talking to your fellow fans and friends about stuff that you can't share with them, that they can't participate in. As a Kiss fan, it kind of goes against what we're about, but Gene has been adamant that the business model has to match him getting paid for his art, and that's fair. We don't have any argument against that, but maybe they will have learned something from the Vault experience and be able to move forward with ideas for Kiss, for Ace. I'd love to see Rhino work with Ace on his archive. That would be brilliant. Yeah.
He's got some really good stuff out there. That's you've probably got it same as I have, the real grainy, the lesser quality versions of things. And actually, somebody asked him at the Q&A about audio video, the song, and it's not even his song. He said he didn't write it.
He co-wrote it with Arthur Stead. I always get his name wrong.
Oh, okay.
But a lot of that early stuff, Arthur co-wrote. Richie wrote quite a bit of it. A lot of it also, like The Hurt Is On, was sourced from other bands who sent demos in to people connected with Ace. So there's a fair amount that's even now, I mean, the guys who maybe wrote that, it wouldn't do them any harm to get a bit of publicity from Ace. Maybe even some publishing, all dependent on whether all those deals could be worked out. But it's the music business, and business is complex. So
I'll just be happy with the new Kiss album, but I don't think that's going to happen now.
Well, be careful what sort of Kiss album you hope for. It might be another compilation, double platinum too.
Probably had enough of those for a while, but
hey, you know what? If it's got a different mix or something interesting on it, I'll never, not purchase a compilation. It's all what is on it. Is there one song that's maybe a single mix that we've not heard, an alternative mix, whatever? Like, what was
nice
it?
Clear live track. They had a couple on that Kiss 40. That was a couple of live songs.
Exactly.
That was cool.
So if it's something, well, who cares? It's better than nothing, especially if they're not going to do a new studio album.
Yeah, even an EP, 4 songs would be 3 or 4 songs would be nice.
Yeah,
we'll do what they did, Smashes, and have a couple of new songs and then a greatest hits following it.
Exactly.
Or Killers, that type of thing.
All right. Well, let's
Cool.
leave that there. Thank you very much for joining me and
Thanks for
us
having me. Good
to
fun.
share your thoughts and represent Australia. I hope everyone else in Australia who did the Vault experiences in Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne also had a good time. We'll look forward to hearing more about those experiences as well online. There's a lot of good Australian Facebook groups that one can check out. And get the word directly. But again, thank you for your time, and thank you for joining the KissFAQ.
Thanks for having me. Good to meet you.
Cheers.
See you later.
Thank you for spending time listening to the KissFAQ podcast today. All sales are final. There are no refunds. If you'd like, look us up on Facebook or come over to the KissFAQ message board and discuss the topic we broadcast today. Don't forget to rate us on iTunes, Spreaker, or wherever you've listened to the show. We hope you'll join us again.